Today, for the first time ever, the Congress and America has now processed and heard what exactly has just upended American politics and government as we know it. The whistleblower complaint about President Trump's plot and call with the president of Ukraine. This is damning stuff. It lays out in detail allegations that the president, quote, abused his power for his own personal gain and re-election, pressing a foreign government, Ukraine, to go after his domestic rivals, Joe Biden and his family. Let's get right into the facts. Quote, I have received information from multiple U.S. government officials. The president is using his power of office to solicit interference from a foreign country in the 2020 U.S. election. What you're seeing here for the first time in public is the complaint that has upended everything and the White House and that Trump's own officials deemed credible. Then to the cover-up. Quote, I learned from multiple U.S. officials, senior White House officials, that intervened to lock down all records of the phone call, especially the official word-for-word transcript. All of this coming as the acting DNI official testified and faced a whole range of questions before the House today. The president also adding to the fire tonight, making chilling comments, and this was in private but now obtained by the L.A. Times, about the whistleblower and the officials who talked to the whistleblower.
Whoever the hell it is, sort of like almost a spy. I want to know who's the person that gave the whistleblower, who's the person that gave the whistleblower the information, because that's close to a spy. You know what we used to do in the old days when we were smart, right? The spies and treason. We used to handle it a little differently than we do now.
We have a lot of reporting and experts. In a moment, we'll be joined by one of the highest-ranking Democrats in Congress. But I begin now with Vince Warren, Executive Director of the Center for Constitutional Rights, on these constitutional questions, conservative Bill Kristol, who directs the group Defending Democracy Together, and Barrett Berger, a former federal prosecutor and a legal analyst for us. Good day to each of you. Vince, I begin with you. Is this whistleblower complaint, deemed credible and with a lot of details, the type of evidence that adds to the constitutional case for impeachment, in your view?
Oh, I think it certainly does. There are almost all of the elements there. There's the initial crime, the misconduct of having the henchmen of the president go out and start conversations, actually long before this phone call even started. Rudy Giuliani was in touch with the former prosecutor in January, connecting them to, then there's the information where the money is stopped. There's the ask and the demand that you need to do something about this. That was all laid out. And I think also what's also very important is the fact that this information was then put on lockdown. Clearly somebody knew within the White House that the information there was not just a lovely phone call. There are real problems there. And that lockdown, I think, is going to be really key in terms of the upcoming investigations.
Yeah, it's all very straightforward, Bill. And what we have here explains why the White House released such damning evidence in the Ukraine call notes. Everyone saw that and said, boy, why would you tell on yourself like that? And part of the answer is the constitutional, congressional, and legal pressure is so great that if this was going to come anyway, this is even worse than what America saw last night. Your view?
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think, the big advantage of this from the point of view of considering impeachment is it's a very discrete set of events that you can really discover, I think, a lot of the facts about. You can get the documents you need to get. You can get the witnesses you need to get. You have to take the position, I think, if you're the House Intelligence Committee or the House Judiciary Committee, that you are not going to let yourself be stonewalled, that if the White House instructs witnesses not to testify, that itself would be an obstruction and an impeachable act. But I think in a month, we could know a ton about what's happened. I think we probably know the outlines already. And for me, the tell today is the Republicans on the Hill, who have been, to me, and we've discussed this before, a huge disappointment and not exactly profiles in courage. I wouldn't say they were profiles in courage today, but Republican senators did not say nothing to it, ridiculous, witch hunt. Republican senators haven't had time to read the whistleblower complaint yet, want to get the fact. Well, but yeah, we can laugh a little bit at the haven't had time to read it, but that implies that if you read it and there's stuff in it, you're going to take it seriously. Chairman Burr of the Senate Intelligence Committee just said, apparently, that he had useful meetings today with the Director of National Intelligence and the IG, the National Intelligence Inspector General, and that he makes it sound like he's he put out a statement that doesn't make sense unless he thinks there's something serious there.
Right.
And that's what strikes me the most. No one can say this is just nonsense.
Let me invite you to build on that before we go to you on the law again, because you're talking about how Congress looks at its duties here. And we have gone in a shift. People say, well, what's really changed? Well, as we've been reporting on the facts, one thing that's changed is 80 more people in the House back impeachment as a probe, which creates a majority. Another thing that's changed is months in the making, Bill, and that is the president went from no collusion to if there is collusion, it's not a crime, to now pro-collusion. How does that change things in Washington? How many people in the Senate want to co-sign that?
Right, and the senators realize now, I was talking to a couple of Republican senators this weekend, they may well have to vote on this. And it's one thing if there are charges floating around and you're never going to have to do anything, you're not a profile in courage, you don't stand up and say, hey, this is inappropriate what the president said, hey, I want to have a hearing on this, you just keep quiet. But if the House votes out an article or articles of impeachment, the senators have to either let it go, decide this action by the president that you were describing is lawful, no problem at all, or not enough of a problem, or they have to vote yes. So I think the Republican senators have suddenly gotten much more serious. Republican House members, in a way, less so, because they can just complain and the Democrats can report out an article or articles of impeachment. But I would say the House Intelligence Committee, though it's been partisan at times, obviously over the last couple of years, especially Devin Nunes, the ranking Republican, if you look down at the list of Republican members, it has 4 or 5 members who are serious people and who I think will try to do the right thing. And I think that committee has more of a chance of agreeing to some degree in a bipartisan way that, hey, we can't just dismiss this. Let's look at the documents. Let's have the witnesses testify.
Bill, the other difference that you're alluding to comes in the nature of this as Americans refresh on why we have impeachment work the way we do, whether they get there or not. House members are up every 2 years. Senators are not. So as you refer to it, these are people who might not be up this cycle, but are up 4 years later. The founders didn't get everything right. But shout out to some of the founders, a longer-term pendency for your Senate seat actually allows you to think 4 or 5 years ahead. And if you don't think you like where Donald Trump is going, if you don't think he's getting better, and if you think your own seat might be a little different and looking different in 4 years, that could change it.
Barrett,
I'll come back to you. No, I'm going to come back to you. I have to moderate.
20 seconds.
I will come.
20 seconds.
I will come. You're here.
I want to
come back to you.
I want to hear you.
You know, this is what he's like. You could tell that he was. You could tell what he is at heart. He's a political person. I will come back to you, but I want to bring Barrett in on the law. I'm going to read to you one passage from this new complaint. I'm curious what you think. Quote, the president pressed Mr. Zelensky to initiate an investigation into the activities of Biden. If the president orders a domestic attorney general or prosecutor to do that, is that even legal?
No. I mean, there is a clear delineation here of what is, the official channels, right? So the U.S. often goes to foreign governments for assistance in our domestic investigations. But there are official channels to do that. Mm-hmm. There are MLAT treaties. There are ways that are established for doing that. They are not done with a wink and a nod or in a phone call like this. But exactly as you said, if the president was to call the U.S. attorney in, a given state and say, hey, I have this guy. He happens to be running for president against me. Could you look into him and bring some charges? That would be equally as inappropriate.
That was worth going to. That was much better than anything I would have said. So my only point is this. When there was a Mueller investigation, it allowed members of the House and the Senate actually to avoid their responsibility. Well, the special counsel will look into it. Let's just wait to hear what he has to say. In a funny way, the disappearance of the Mueller investigation has forced the House, I think, to be serious about this.
That is so interesting. Build on that, because our viewers have heard about this. Our viewers know, and we follow this stuff pretty closely. For a long time, it was wait for Mueller, wait for Mueller. Then he details all this stuff, and suddenly a bunch of members of the House said, well, we need more whatever. You're saying they can't do that this time?
Well, because the president did whatever he did with respect to Ukraine, with respect to sending Giuliani over and so forth. Either the House is going to hold him accountable or not. No one else is going to. The Justice Department's not going to. It's not going to get to the courts in a timely fashion. So either the House of Representatives says, this is really unacceptable. We cannot be inviting foreign interference in our elections from the Oval Office in real time, with letting it go, let this go for the next year. Presumably the president can keep on doing it. So the House really has to choose yay or nay. The House can't say, that's very interesting, very complicated. I look forward to reading the report in 6 months.
So it's striking when you put it that way. All of you stay. I want to bring in a little more facts for your analysis on this when we get into what did we learn today. We mentioned senior White House officials had intervened. Take a look at this. They locked down, according to whistleblower, the records of the call, and this all happened more than once. Quote, this was not the first time under the Trump administration a presidential transcript was placed into a code word level system for the purpose of protecting these politically sensitive rather than national security sensitive information. The outlines of a cover-up. Take a listen to Speaker Pelosi.
The complaint reports a, quote, repeated abuse of an electronic record system designed to store classified, sensitive national security information, which the White House used to hide information of a political nature. This is a cover-up.
And the complaint goes on to say the president's personal lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, is a central figure in the effort. Attorney General Barr appears to be involved as well, and that a, quote, meeting or phone call between the president and President Zelensky of Ukraine would depend on whether he showed willingness to, quote, play ball on this plot, on the issues aired by Giuliani himself. Here is the acting DNI chief today about something very important, which is, should you believe the motivations of this whistleblower? Take a listen.
You don't believe the whistleblower is a political hack, do you, Director?
I believe that, as I said before, Mr. Chairman, I believe the whistleblower is operating in good faith.
As promised, we bring in Congressman Hakeem Jeffries from the Judiciary Committee and the fifth-ranking member of the House. Good evening to you on a busy night. Thank you for being here. I'll be judicious with your time, sir. Number one, what changed today in your view?
Well, the release of the whistleblower complaint just confirmed the troubling nature of the allegations that have been unfolding over the last few days. It's clear as day that Donald Trump betrayed his oath of office, betrayed the American people, and has engaged in serious acts of wrongdoing. The very act of pressuring a foreign government to target an American citizen for political gain is in and of itself outrageous. Now it appears that the White House has engaged in a cover-up, understanding the nature of the behavior and trying to hide it both from Congress and the American people.
Let's dig into that, sir. The cover-up, as alleged and as deemed credible by Trump officials, includes a bunch of people we're going to put up here, from the president and the vice president to the attorney general to Rudy Giuliani to other officials who are less known but still have important jobs, the ambassador, former ambassador to Ukraine, people at the State Department. How many of these people do you think the Congress should subpoena to hear from?
Well, that's a matter for Chairman Adam Schiff and the Intelligence Committee to determine. We have great confidence in what they are going to do in terms of uncovering the truth for the American people. They're going to follow the facts. They're going to apply the law. They're going to be guided by the United States Constitution. This is a serious matter. This is a question of our national security. It's an issue of the integrity of our elections. This is about patriotism. And we have to get to the bottom of it all.
I hear you. Let me ask you this. I hear you deferring to Congressman Schiff. He has clearly handled this in a manner that has worked in the sense of interbranch conflict. In short order, he, combined with, I guess, the colleagues, and some would argue some of the pressure in the Senate as well, have pried out of the administration these important and many argue incriminating materials faster than some other investigations. As you know, there are reports that the Speaker is going to direct things a little bit away from the Judiciary Committee on which you serve and towards the Intelligence Committee. Do you think that is right? Do you think if there are articles of impeachment, they will focus solely on this Ukraine issue?
Well, that remains to be seen, but we're going to keep the focus for the time being on this national security issue and the Ukraine scandal. The Speaker has made clear, and she's provided tremendous leadership over the last few days, as she has throughout her entire career, that we are operating under an impeachment umbrella with 6 committees of jurisdiction, but because of the nature, the urgent nature of the Ukraine scandal, the lead in terms of investigative fact-finding will be the Intel Committee. But at the end of the process— And
you're part of the Speaker's leadership. Have you or the Speaker talked to Chairman Nadler about that? Is everyone on one page here?
Everybody's on the same page. In fact, I participated in a Judiciary Committee meeting led by Chairman Nadler yesterday, where we all understand that the Intelligence Committee is taking a step forward. But at the end of the process, the Intel Committee and the other committees of jurisdiction, including the Oversight Committee and the Financial Services Committee, will make recommendations to the Judiciary Committee as to how to proceed. Let's get into that. Potential articles of impeachment.
We're talking about the whole enchilada here. We're talking about the existential question of what the House does with the president. You're saying the way it would work then is this is confirmed that the Intel's taking the lead. Whatever they find here, they then send ultimately to Chairman Nadler and your Judiciary Committee. And if you decide to move forward on articles of impeachment, they go from Intel to Judiciary to the House floor?
Yes, that would be regular order, and that's consistent with the fact that the Intel Committee has jurisdiction over this issue. It involved a conversation between the president and a foreign leader, as well as the attempted use of taxpayer dollars in terms of the hundreds of millions of dollars that had been allocated by the Congress to Ukraine and withheld. This is a country that is under attack from Russia at this very moment. The president clearly wanted to use that aid and the sensitive position that Ukraine was in order to extract an investigation targeting Joe Biden and the Biden family for political gain. That all falls within the jurisdiction of the Intel Committee, and that's why the Intel Committee will be taking the lead because of this subject matter.
Understood, and all very interesting, including you telling us a little bit about the meetings and the considerations. I have a tougher question for you, sir. A lot of people are impressed with what you and the Speaker and Chairman Schiff are doing this week, and you just laid out the urgent national security case. And yet the House is going to then go on recess tomorrow. Do you really think that is consistent with the claim that this is a national security emergency? Is that a good idea? Should you and the Speaker rethink that and stay at work on all this?
Well, I think two things are going to happen. One, that it's important, given the solemn and serious nature of what we have to do as it relates to the impeachment inquiry, that everyone should have an opportunity to go back home and talk to their constituents on the ground, in person, in an intimate way, to communicate the approach that we've taken. At the same time, the Intel Committee is going to proceed with hearings and investigative matters over that recess to continue to uncover the truth, to follow the facts, to present the evidence to the American people.
So you don't think you're going to lose, shall we call it, momentum here?
Well, the Intel Committee is going full steam ahead, and I think that's going to be most important. At the same time, we'll be communicating in our districts to the American people why this is so important, why this is a national security concern, why we have taken this important step forward.
Congressman Jeffries, always appreciate you taking the question, sir.
Thank you very much, Ari.
Thank you. I want to turn briefly to the panel here. Rapid 1 or 2 sentences, anything you thought based on what Jeffries said and where they're headed.
Yeah, I mean, I think the importance of being laser focused in this inquiry cannot be overstated. I mean, you could potentially call 100 witnesses to try to shed light on all of the events here, and I just don't think they have the benefit of that time.
But I think they can call, don't you think, a dozen or so who will know a lot. I mean, John Bolton and Dan Coates and Mike Pompeo.
But leave Mueller report out of this?
Yes, I think Ukraine focused.
Vince, final word?
2 things. If the UK Supreme Court Justice Lady Hale were here, she might tell Congress to go back to work. The second thing, most importantly, is one of the key reasons why this is different than the Mueller is that we have a live document that is actually, and we haven't even seen the unredacted transcript. This is going to be something that the committees and the American people can look at and can see it, no matter what the spin is, no matter how it plays out. If the government comes forward and says, yes, we'll turn over that information, everybody's going to see and judge. If they say no and they allow for privilege, it's going to raise an inference that there's something to hide here. Either way, I think it's a much more powerful subject matter.
Vince Warren, Bill Kristol, and Bear Berger, experts, all of you, thank you for your unique perspectives on this. Hey, I'm Ari Melber from MSNBC. You can see more of our videos right here, or better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel below. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate that.